There, to the best of my knowledge, has been no use of other use of force options like rubber bullets. I'm aware that that's been twittered by a number of people, but that, like much of the information being put out by these anarchists, is misinformation in order to mislead the public and the media.
I was standing here exactly like this.
And they shot you with
this. I was like that.
And they shot you with a plastic bullet.
In the knee. They didn't believe you. Oh, look, it made a hole right through my shorts, too.
Then there was what I saw, which was middle-class people of all ages, a very diverse crowd, just trying to make a point that whether the G20 is here or whether it isn't here, we don't necessarily give up all of our civil rights to speak freely and to assemble. That's the only point, as far as I could tell, and I talked to probably 50 demonstrators over the course of the night. That's the only point they were trying to make. And for trying to make that point, several hundred of them ended up in jail, and a few of them got beaten up.
Amy Miller. I was detained yesterday at approximately noon. I was with Adam as well as one other colleague. We were on our way to cover the jail solidarity action. On the way on Bloor, near Bay, we stopped because we saw a group of young people being detained and being searched, so we wanted to see what was happening. As Adam recounted, he was quickly taken down, and the same thing happened to me. I was throttled at the neck and held down, and then I was detained for nearly 13 hours. I was placed in a cell at the Toronto Film Studio, and I was in a cell with 25 other young women for approximately 13 hours. Throughout the time that I was detained, I was told many statements that I find repulsive and completely inappropriate, and what I view as threats. I was told I was going to be raped. I was told I was going to be gangbanged. I was told that they were going to make sure that I was never going to want to act as a journalist again by making sure that I would be repeatedly raped while I was in jail. When I was in the detention center, I saw numerous young women who were completely strip searched, who weren't strip searched by who were strip searched by male officers. And one young woman, when she was coming out, who was completely traumatized, said that she had had a finger put up her. And I find this completely unacceptable, and I hope that people will investigate this, because from what I saw in the cell, from the women who were coming out, who were being strip searched, they were definitely traumatized, and there was very much violence that was targeted to young women.
I was protesting amongst other people, and I was swarmed by riot police who then threw me on the ground. One of the riot police had put their foot on my head to push my head down and informed me that I was resisting arrest when I wasn't. At this time, I had already said to them, I'm not resisting arrest, please don't hurt me. There was a number of riot police that were taking my bag off of me. Someone kicked me, someone was holding my legs down. I had a few of them that were holding my arms, saying I was resisting arrest when I wasn't. And then eventually they got my hands behind my back because they asked me to. I put my hands behind my back, and they then put the zip ties on my hands, and which were really tight. I was losing circulation in my hands. At this point, one of the riot police officers had pulled my hair and pulled me up off the ground by my hair. At this point, a number of them had brought me over to the paddy wagon and threw me up against the paddy wagon. One of them said that I was getting ready to spit. I said, no, I'm not getting ready to spit. They said, put your hand on her mouth. One riot officer said for me to stop moving my head. It was virtually impossible for me to stop moving my head because he had my hair and he had my head looking up at the sky. The other riot police officer then put his hand over my mouth, and I told him I wasn't going to spit. He told me to shut the fuck up. They kept saying that to me. They kept telling me to shut the fuck up. They told me that I was provoking the people, and I was trying to tell them I wasn't. At this point, now, while they have my head pulled back and a glove over my mouth, They then searched me. It was a male officer that rubbed both my breasts and went down and rubbed my private parts and rubbed my other parts and all the way down my legs. And after that, they said that they asked me if I wanted my bandana cut off my hair. I said yes, please. And so at this point, they were telling me not to move because they were going to cut the bandana from around my neck. At this point, I have already urinated myself because I was so scared. And now I'm thinking they have a knife and they're going to have it around my neck and cut my bandana off my head.
Then I looked over, and before I knew it, there were 6 or 7 officers charging towards me to arrest me. They basically, I didn't resist when they picked me up, threw me on the pavement once. I was able to put my right hand down to keep my face from hitting the pavement. Then I was picked up very violently and kind of dragged up. I was thrown down again. I had been basically snatched by uniformed officers. At that time, 4 men in plain clothes then took me, sort of threw me towards an unmarked van. If you can picture this, the middle seat of the van was actually folded down so that there was a space to lie on, essentially. I was thrown in and jostled around. I was put on my back so that my feet were towards the end of the van, and my head was towards the passenger seat and the driver's seat. And one of the officers, who I know to be Officer Kevin Antoine of the Division 52 in the Toronto Police. Kevin Antoine is badge number 7880. Officer Antoine then sat on top of me. Another man who I have no idea whether he's a police officer or not. No one ever identified themselves to me as a police officer. The second officer then, Officer Antoine was punching me in the torso after I was thrown in the van. The second officer then actually went and choked me and dug his thumb deeply into my carotid artery, and I almost went unconscious. Then Officer Antoine was just continuing to sit on top of me and sort of shifting around, sort of treating me like an inanimate object. My throat was held for about 10 seconds. I very closely tried not to lose consciousness at that point. But at that point I lost bladder control and urine seeped into my clothing. Then I did not go unconscious, and the other officer released my throat. At that point, that other officer then punched me in the head very hard. I still did not lose consciousness. At that point, Officer Antoine then sort of started patting around me and said, "Why is she wet?" to the other officer, and the other officer replied that I had urinated on myself. And at that point, Officer Antoine then expressed disgust and scooted further down my legs. He had been sitting again over my pelvic area. At that point, Officer Antoine then continued to verbally assault me, was using a variety of very, very gender-specific terms, very sexually charged terms. They're terms that I do not want to repeat out loud. So Officer Antoine then continued to go ahead and verbally assault me, as it took several minutes to pull into the police station. I had been flipped over on my stomach by that point, and he actually threatened to punch me in the nose as well and break my nose if I did not keep my face down towards the carpet. I was in a very vulnerable position, and I consider myself pretty lucky that things weren't actually worse. I stand with all of the women who have been assaulted and whose rights have been violated during the G20.